Intact forest landscapes are forests where from space you cannot see that there's been any human intervention. You can't see roads, you can't see buildings, you can't see fields, except in some cases if it's indigenous peoples who have made their living in the forest. So they are the most intact, you can say, they are the most undisturbed forest in the world. Since 2014, FSC has had rules for protection of intact forest landscapes. These rules were about, or are about, how do we protect the intact forest landscape inside the certified area. But many people are saying, well, what about the area outside? Because inside the certified area is quite little as compared to what is in the forest overall. Shouldn't we look at that also? And also, the rules for protection are so strict inside an area where the area is designated for production. How does that fit together? Shouldn't we actually look at the bigger picture?
We can see that definition of IFL, implementation of protection, of IFL protection is not working. And until now, FSA do not find a practical and pragmatical solution to better protect IFL. And we need to find a way to better define, propose some rules which can adapt to this dynamics of the forest and complexity of the forest, and specifically in tropical areas.
If you try and create a rule that works for all forests around the world, whether they're temperate and tropical, there are going to be multiple victims of your lack of sophistication, and it will end up having a counterproductive impact on forestry. So please take the time to assess this issue. Let's be technical about it. Let's hear each other instead of talking in parallel terms, and let's come up with the best solution for the forests.
Really what we're understanding is that if FSC is going to take that bold step and uphold UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and require FPIC at the localized implementation of standards, so free, prior, and informed consent, these two things need to intersect wholeheartedly. In fact, we interacted with what we call all our relations, all the animals, the forest ecosystems, the water. So this permanent protection and don't touch, it should only occur in special circumstances. And I think that's the paradigm shift that everybody's trying to get their head around is, can we allow for certain levels of manipulation of the forest, whether it's harvesting, whether it's other forms of use of ecosystem services or valuation of ecosystem services, to create a more holistic opportunity for everyone, again, forest forever for all.
El bosque son más que árboles. El bosque es la gente, son los árboles, son los ríos, es el agua, son los animales que interactúan en un paisaje. Por eso es importante tener una mirada amplia para poder sugerir soluciones que respondan a todos estos tipos de contextos y paisajes. Necesitamos ofrecer soluciones que respondan a los distintos contextos y realidades de las poblaciones que confluyen en estos bosques.
We've already lost 50% of the intact forest landscapes in the world, and so seeing the role that FSC could play in protecting those remaining IFLs. So we brought the motion to the General Assembly and got a high level of support for it to transform the direction of FSC to be more focused on conservation of these really important remaining intact forest areas. If we don't find some benefit and some incentive for the conservation and protection, we know that in the long term these areas will not remain. And we've learned that, there's more, I guess, about the loss of income and benefits if the trees can't be harvested. So now we're looking at how we can substitute some of that to find a way to finance the conservation and protection of these areas.
We have several motions that have come to this General Assembly for discussion and for decision. Some of them are promoting new rules for how can we protect the natural values, what we call high conservation values, inside these areas without necessarily fully protecting them. Are there ways we can do that? Other motions are saying, how can we actually make sure that indigenous peoples and local communities in these areas can have a living without needing to destroy the forest that they live in? I think what has happened in the discussion towards this General Assembly is that there is an agreed picture of how we should manage these landscapes in the future. That we should accept some level of logging in the areas, some level of livelihoods for local communities if we look at a wider picture and ensure that the wider landscape has actually good protection of intact forest landscapes. So I think we have a good picture of the long-term vision, what we want to achieve. What we need is also to understand how do we get there from here. And that, I think, is going to be a continued discussion.